everybody. Happy Sunday. I'm good. How are you? Hey, Chastity. Hey, Nehemiah. Welcome to our last session together. I know you all are really sad. Hey, sweetie. How are you? Awesome. That's good to hear. Well, happy Sunday. I hope that you all have had a really pleasant day. Hey, Christina. I see you. I hope you've had a really pleasant day. I got a chance to walk outside in this gorgeous weather. So, I don't have my fireplace on. I don't know if you guys noticed. I think I've had my fireplace on every night because it's cold. It was cold here in Chicago, but tonight it's in the 60s. So, and I got a request a couple of hours ago to go out for a walk. I had already been walking, so it's like, okay, let's schedule for tomorrow. So walk along. I didn't go along the lake though, which is kind of my favorite thing to do. So I hope the weather is gorgeous where you are. We Chicagoans really appreciate any glimpse of warm weather we have after our long winters. So I'm sure I was not the only person outside. Okay, so let's just get started. So I don't keep you too long. We have spent the last 6 days, this is our 7th day, exploring all the ways we allow our feelings of mostly fear to stop our forward momentum. I've been talking about the breaks because that's what I call them. It's my own way of speaking about those internal fear-based beliefs that slow us down. And as I said last night, whether, it's starting a business or going for that promotion that you really want or taking on a big project or, whatever it is that you're trying to do, starting that, living into that entrepreneurial dream that you've had, we can get afraid. We can get afraid and we can stop ourselves. The breaks is one of the things that I talk about. I really focus on when I'm working with clients to really kind of help them identify and remove the obstacles and barriers so that they can, get to the skills more clearly, the skills that they have that are unique to them, that are, the way they express themselves authentically. To be able to get to that, you sometimes have to remove some of the old stuff, some of the things that are stopping you. And so that's what the breaks are. So just as a reminder, the breaks are beliefs that limit, reality that might not be real, assumptions that don't apply, the killer critic that assassinates your dreams and ideas, expectations that block your blessings, and a guidance system that's perhaps taking you off track. So that's the six things that make up the breaks. Mike made a really cute video, so go to the group and check out the video that Mike posted. These are the breaks. Some of y'all don't know anything about that, but and in case you're feeling any anxiety around what you've been exposed to, because it might feel familiar, that is valid. It's okay to have those feelings. That's okay. You have a right to those feelings. And then the key, though, to not getting stuck in those feelings or not is to process versus repress them. So processing, it may include listening to music, talking it out, whatever you do to process your feelings, but do that. Hey LQ, I see you at in one of your personas. Okay, we've been being aware. We've been being made aware of some of the things that stop us, and awareness is always the first step. And again, that's what we've been doing the last few days. I've also asked you to be reflective during our, during the homework and doing the homework questions. Have been reflection questions that asked you to think about some of the topics that we talked about. So, what are some of the beliefs that are stopping you? What is something that you're not accepting as real, or assumptions that you are making? So all of those things require a little exploration of what it is that you believe, what it is that you think, what assumptions that you're making. Also included in that process, and can be affirmations, or keeping a gratitude journal, that just so that you are aware of things that can counter some of the things that may be stopping you. Praying for guidance, praying for strength if you are a believer, and then being still enough to recognize the response. So having some discernment. After awareness, a consistent first step to release the brakes is to maybe pull apart this narrative, the story that you're telling yourself about what it is that you believe. It's one of the things I do, continue to do. Why am I responding, to something that I may be responding to? Why do I feel a certain way? It's a way that I may not want to feel. I have gotten pretty good over over my decades of life, with the allowing this prefrontal cortex that I've described, where the logic center, to sort of counter or work with the limbic system, the emotional center of our brain, to come up with the response versus the emotional reaction that is going to get me what I want, right? So responding in a way that may, get me what I want, or it may not, but at least I'm not, flying off the handle, or responding in anger, or, being overly emotional. And like I said, I'm always thinking, when that does happen, because it does, then I'm looking to see why. I'm being reflective. I'm trying to, make myself aware of what was the trigger, what was the thing that set me off, and then how can I eliminate that in the future. Now, the other thing I want to just talk about is, these fears, these thoughts, these feelings come from a place. And as we've said, normally those things are feelings and thoughts and beliefs that we acquire sometimes when we are really young, when we don't know how to discern whether it's good or bad, right or wrong. So you don't have you can identify what it is, and maybe when you got it, you don't have to necessarily dwell on the source. It can help you decide how to fix it, how to rectify it. However, you don't want to get stuck in blame, when you're determining how you got that belief, especially if it came from someone that's close to you. So you don't want to get stuck in blaming that person for you believing what you believe. And that includes yourself, right? Give yourself some grace. Again, a lot of things we acquire when we are young. So we're going to spend a little time, as much as I can, to, stay within 30, 40 minutes, on some ways we can let go of the beliefs that limit, ways we can examine reality, challenge assumptions, disarm your killer critic, and eliminate expectations. So those are all and reset your system. I forgot about the last one. So those are all the things that we've been talking about. Now we're going to talk about how to release some of those things that are stopping us from going forward. So any questions about what we're doing? Everybody kind of tracking? You're tracking with what we're doing? Okay. All right. So please, I'll stop periodically for questions. In fact, I'm going to be asking you some questions. Encourage you to be vulnerable and share if you feel so inclined to do so. So the first one is letting go of limiting beliefs. So you can, again, believe whatever you want about yourself. But again, understand that you may have acquired some of the beliefs you have based on, a lack of understanding or some misinformation, because again, you acquired them when you were too young, perhaps, to discern what was the correct thing. Or even if you were older, again, it might have been based on something that you didn't quite understand. So the beliefs that limit aren't necessarily the beliefs about our core identity. They may be beliefs we have about, how we spend our time every day. For example, telling ourselves that we don't have the time, that we don't have the energy, that we're too tired. So that's not necessarily an identity core, but it does speak to how we, want to go about our day. So here's a question for you. What happens when we don't believe that we can do something? And this is for anybody. I'm gonna I'm gonna take a minute to give you an opportunity to answer the questions. What happens when we don't believe we can do something? We talked about this the very first night when we talked about beliefs. What's that, Chastity? Defeated. And so when you feel defeated before you even start, what happens? Okay. Okay. That can be one of those critical voices. But yeah, so what happens? So stressed and depressed. Are you moving forward if you're stressed and depressed? Are you doing the thing that you may want to do? If you believe that you can't do it, are you going to do it? Okay. 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 So Chastity is saying that since retirement, she has a little bit more time to perhaps deal with the feelings she's having, or maybe failing, if she's facing something that she is not feeling 100% sure about. But yeah, but sometimes it can also stop us if we don't believe we can do it. We don't even try. And so here's some suggestions around kind of getting around that feeling of belief is, really examining what you do believe about yourself. So what are some of the things that you believe about yourself? Um, and then how true is that belief? And how did you acquire that belief, right? And how is that belief serving you? And how has that belief hindered you? And how can you release that belief? So Salona is saying she is going to pray. She's going to pray to ask the Lord to help her unbelief. So that's a technique that you can use. But again, just kind of understanding, going through the process of understanding, kind of, is it true, right? How did you acquire it? Again, all of the things that you can spend some time going a little deep on to figure out how you got it so that you can release it. Okay. Now, here's a technique that I have shared to release that belief that is limiting you. And that is to, get really specific and think of a goal that you want to achieve. So it can be any kind of goal, finances, personal or professional life. And then, when it comes to that particular goal, what are the conversations you are having with yourself about why you can or cannot achieve it? And especially the why you can't achieve it. What is it you're saying to yourself about why you can't achieve that goal? And so, and then write it down. Write down, during your uh, time when you're meditating, or when you are having just some thought time. Give yourself some time to do that and jot down any of the empowering or limiting beliefs that you have about yourself. Be honest. You don't have to share any of that here. You can if you want, but be honest with yourself about what it is that you're saying to yourself about what you can and cannot do. And so then once you write that down, you can also write down why the belief is not true, or reframing it in a way that makes positive impact, right? So taking something that is limiting you, and telling yourself or writing down why that is not true, because you can, or I am, even about how you're feeling. I am not stressed, or I am, maybe it can be, I am, spending some time doing the things that I need to do, and take some time to give yourself time to be reflective, or to quiet down, or to take some deep breaths to make it not true. And again, you don't have to know where that particular belief came from. Um, but it can be helpful, but you don't have to know exactly where it came from to get rid of it. The thing is, we have thousands of thoughts every day, and a lot of them are negative. So if you can train yourself to stop and ask yourself why you are having that thought, that belief, that negative belief, and try to reframe it in a positive way, and then affirm who you are, or who it is that you aspire to be, that's a way to negate the negative impact of limiting beliefs. So, any questions about some of the techniques I just shared with to release some of the beliefs that are limiting us? Okay, so let's go to number two, which is examining what we're calling reality. Now, what we talked about on night two is that what we call reality is just filtered through our own experiences and beliefs. And again, experiences and beliefs in particular that we may have had for a long time, that we may not even be aware that we had. And so the reality, that the things that we are saying real in our lives, are filtered through all of that. And I use the example of, if I don't think anybody had an opportunity to be on a jury, but maybe watch the crime show. But I think a couple of you had experienced a car accident, perhaps, or something where people had different viewpoints about what had actually happened. And, you're like, well, don't you see what happened? Well, they're seeing it through their own sense of reality. But there's another way to look at any situation, and that is a choice to look at it a different way. And it does take efforts. I'm not saying it's necessarily easy, but you can choose to look at whatever you're calling reality in a different light. So again, the first step is just an awareness that whatever reality you are clinging to may no longer be serving you. And so remember, all of the breaks, everything that we're talking about are things that are stopping us. If what you're believing, if what you're calling reality, and you are going forward in what it is you feel like you're called to do, then it's not a break, right? So, but if it's no longer serving you, and just being aware of that through some examination. So, what is your own evaluation of what it is that you're seeing? And what you're seeing, what you're calling reality, what does it feel like? Is it kind? Does it feel rational? Or is it dark? Is it negative? Is it abusive? Are you beating yourself up about something? Right? So that is not a reality that is going to get you to move forward into what it is that you are called to do. How does the reality, what you're calling reality, fit your narrative about your life? Does it push your narrative forward? Does it stop your narrative? And then what is another way to look at what you're looking at? Again, you can choose to look at a different way. Here's one. What would somebody that you're close to, maybe a friend or a relative, say about the situation? Would they agree with your perspective, or would they say, that that's not, I don't see it that way. And what would somebody with the opposite reality say about what you're calling reality? How would they respond? So these are all ways to kind of really examine what you're calling real. And how does your reality compare to, again, what you have already expressed about you? Okay. So here's a technique to change a negative reality about yourself, is to acknowledge the things that you do well or that you've done well. Now, an acknowledgement is different from an affirmation, and that acknowledgement is based on something real, something that actually happened. Right. And if you're not used to saying good things about yourself, if you're not used to hearing praise or giving yourself credit for what you do, finding something that is positive about you could be really hard. But, take some time, explore those things that you've done well, or the things that made you feel good. You work out. Chastity said that she worked out. That is something that you did that is good for you. And the idea of not acknowledging you, especially if you have been, have this idea of being sacrificial and not necessarily talking about yourself, it could seem cocky and conceited, but it's not. It is not. This is, again, not unwarranted praise, nor is it, really comparing yourself to anybody else. You're not comparing yourself. You are looking at you realistically and formulating thoughts and or sentences that you can write down or say out loud about something positive that you did. So the working out, is a good one to use. Whatever you did, in during your day that made you feel good about yourself, reminding yourself of those things is a way to change a negative reality. And then just, if you need to do that on a regular basis, hey, I have a lot of different ways that I remind myself that I'm all that in a bag of chips. I have I have a little mind movie that I made with these affirmations that I watch. I have my own voice recorded just to remind me. I have affirmations on my mirror in my bathroom. So sometimes you just need to remind yourself that you are all that. And so, whatever it is you need to say to yourself. When I was writing my book, I have one of the mind movies I made was about me writing my book. So I created a mind movie that I could watch to remind myself of why I needed to write it and that I actually could do it. So whatever it is that you need to tell yourself about you, those are the things that you want to do to make sure that you are formulating positive thoughts about who you are. Okay, let's move on to the A in breaks, which was assumptions that don't necessarily apply. And, the nature of an assumption, of course, is that you don't really know that you're making an assumption. And just like everything else that we've talked about, it's not necessarily negative. It could be some assumption that you're making about, we talked about working out, that it's a good thing, and it is. But the acceptance that because something happened a certain way, it's going to happen exactly that way again. Are assumptions, again, that lead us to decisions that are going to negatively impact our lives, are some of the things that we want to avoid. We don't want to allow, assumptions that are based on the past or based on bias or stereotypes to control what we are going to do in the present, or what we plan to do in the future. And so, again, the first thing is, to challenge that assumption. Am I making an assumption, or are you making an assumption what that it the thing that you're thinking may be true, or that you're thinking is true, might not be true, right? And then to challenge yourself to let it go and choose something that is more positive and more in alignment with, again, where you're trying to go. So some questions you can ask yourself is, how do you know this to be true? How do you know it's true? Right? One of the things that I challenge my clients with sometimes is, how do they know about the things that they believe they know about? Is it something that they have learned from actual experience, or is it something they've learned from TV or, some other media? So how do you know what it is that you're assuming is true? And another thing you can ask yourself is, why does it have to happen this particular way? Again, especially if it's not what you want to happen. And, substitute that with what you want to happen. What is it that you want to happen instead of what you're kind of assuming will happen, right? And how can you let go of the assumptions you're making about whatever it is that you're assuming? We see this when it comes, in so many different ways about, there's something that we want, and then we immediately tell ourselves why we can't have it, right? Well, I'm going to talk about this later, but the Bible calls that double-minded, right? We can't believe that we're going to have something, or we can't say we want something and then believe that we can't have it, right? And so that can be an assumption. It can be that critical voice in your head. Any questions about what I've shared with assumptions, with regard to assumptions? All right, so let's move on to the big one, and that was the killer critic, the killer of our dreams, our ideas. It's a big one. It assassinates our positivity, maybe even our joy. And as I said, it may have originally been an external voice, so somebody that was an authority figure in your life. But what's happened is, over time, we have maybe not even, unconsciously agreed to what was said. We've internalized the toxicity, and now we're telling ourselves that we can't, that we weren't, or that we aren't, and that we don't. So whatever, fill in the blanks with whatever it is that you might be telling yourself. The killer critic shows up in a lot of ways, and it can show up like, that sabotage of speaking against who you are or what it is that you want, that double-mindedness. It can show up like perfectionism, right? So it's not good enough. That's that internal voice. It can show up like procrastination disguised as perfectionism, or just procrastination because you're not setting out, time to do what it is that you need to do, or you're using things to distract yourself from what it is that you really should be doing. And, I do this all the time, and I'll say, hey, I'm talking on the phone because I'm doing work avoidance, right? So I pick a time sometimes to call, family and friends instead of doing what I need to be doing. But, the key, again, is to be aware of that. Or maybe even, we're telling ourselves that we're waiting for the right time. So that's a form of perfectionism. Or imposter syndrome. So who's heard of imposter syndrome? Just kind of wave your hands in the air. It's any woman's conference I think I've ever been to. They talk about imposter syndrome, right? But that's an internal voice, really. Now, it may again have come from what you experienced in a particular work environment. This undermining that happens to everybody. It's not just women that it happens to, but the undermining, the things that we're told about why we can't do what we're supposed to, what we want to do, or what we're there to do. Mike shared his story of being told that, when he went to the Air Force Academy, that he would not make it past the first holiday. For Mike, that was like, I'm going to show you why I am supposed to be here. But imagine a lot of people who encountered that kind of negative pushback feel like they don't belong, and so, but again, that is that thing that we've internalized, if we agree with it and act on it versus pushing back against it. It can be, giving up. It can show up like, staying in your comfort zone, or telling, yourself that you need to know more. This was one I discovered not too long ago. This idea that I needed to know more. Again, it kind of plays into my learner strength. I'm a learner. I love to learn. And sometimes, though, the learner gets in the way of me moving forward, right? And so I recently realized that was a form of procrastination. The voice in my head was telling me I didn't know enough when I know that I do. So I stopped the class that I was about to take. I was like, nope, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to do what I need to be doing, like getting ready for my master class. So it shows up in all kinds of ways. So the way we can discern that killer critic is to take the target off your forehead. You take the target off your forehead by being aware of the killer critic, where it might show up. Maybe even naming it to take away its power. So you want to disarm it by making it an advocate, because a lot of times, I talked about sometimes that external voice was there to protect you, and sometimes that killer critic, that internal critic, that inner critic telling you, is a way to slow you down. Maybe you did need to learn some more. Maybe you need some more experience. So you can give it. Mine is Bertha. So I just, sometimes I just tell Bertha, I got it. I don't need your help. But you can disarm it by making it an advocate, by thanking that critical voice for the ways that it might be trying to protect you, and then letting that critical voice know that you can take it. You can go forward with what it is that you want to do. Now, again, I talked about the critical voice that comes from an external voice, and you have to be aware of those critical voices in your life even now. So people that are always critical of you and others, people who say and do things to keep you where you are in life. They say it's because they care about you, and they want to keep you safe. And that happens to us, throughout our lives. So, you can decide not to let those voices, not to take those voices personally, because critical people are critical of themselves and others. You can ask them what their intention is. And you can also limit the amount of time you spend with them. And that includes, people that may be in your, family. You can limit the amount of time that you spend with them. They don't get access just because they're family members, and they certainly don't get access to, drain you with their critical energy. Okay, any comments or questions about that? I'm sure no pushback on that one. I know Chastity mentioned some family members that were draining her, and so sometimes you just kind of have to limit access if you feel like you can handle it. But sometimes you might just have to set some boundaries around your access to you. Okay, so the next to last thing, of course, is expectations. The expectations is this idea that whatever it is that we're looking for, our salvation, our opportunity, our abundance, we expect it to look and feel and be a certain way. And as I shared, as I shared, Neil Donald Walsh, one of my favorite authors, the author of Conversations with God, calls expectations a source of frustration, and that is because it robs us of the joy that we may have from what it is that we're experiencing. It also may cause us to overlook the opportunities that are just what we need, right? And so one of the ways that we can eliminate those expectations is that to recognize, again, awareness, recognize that you are perhaps fixated on a particular expectation, and that it might keep you from seeing other ways to achieve what you want, right? And so, asking yourself, why does the solution have to be a certain way? What could an alternate route, look like? Is this person, this situation, this opportunity right in front of me, maybe what I need? And how can I accept that as a solution because it's different from what I expected? Now, this is one of those kind of like, I think, reality that could perhaps use the help of someone that you're close to. So, like a family member or a friend or someone that knows you well to kind of help you filter or help you examine the expectations that you're having to make sure that they are real. I'm not saying I have standards. I'm just saying, is the expectation keeping you from moving forward, keeping you from seeing the opportunity that is right in front of you? I have shared a story, I don't think I did it this time, of, the lady that said she couldn't marry, somebody who was in the military, or couldn't marry somebody with kids, or, had all these conditions around what her future husband would be, and, which almost caused her to overlook the person she eventually married. But she recognized what she was doing and was able to overcome those expectations and see the opportunity for what it was. Okay. The last thing in the breaks is a system of operations or guidance system, whichever you prefer. I use both sort of interchangeably, whatever the circumstances is. And so it's all the things we've talked about. It's, how we see the world. It's the beliefs, it's assumptions, it's, who we allow to influence our thoughts, the expectations that we have, our willingness to take risk, our ability to see, the glass half full or half empty. It's our values, it's our strengths, it's our personality. It's, where we are on that extroversion introversion spectrum, whether or not we are someone who enjoys change or dreads change. All of the things that make up who we are make up our system of operations. Okay. And so one of the things that you can do to reset that system of operations, first of all, is all the things that, I've suggested with regard to every other thing. So that is going to, that may actually cause some resetting. But, just like with everything else, spending some time with some awareness, some reflection about what it is that you're doing, where you're going, that and whether or not the choices that you're making, the life that you're living, is getting you where you want to go, or is it keeping you stuck or stagnant, or even going in the opposite direction? Okay. That is some ideas, some thoughts, some ways to release the brakes. Reggie, you're coming back in. Are you? Oh, okay. you're coming. You're coming in multiple ways. Okay. All right. So, any questions or comments about what I've shared with you? Anybody want to offer any ways that you kind of reflect and grow your awareness around the thoughts, especially the negative thoughts that you may be having? Any sharing? I saw earlier. I think yes, LQ talked about meditating as a way to kind of get still. Yes, moving away from home can create some natural boundaries. Uh, Yoga, yes. Yes, a physical activity, yoga specifically, is, more of a meditative way to address your stress, but, by addressing some of the energy centers in your body. So it's probably more intentional around that than some of the other things that we do, which can sometimes stress us out if we get too caught up in it. Even something good, if we are, stressing around our whether or not we do it, can be a negative. It can cause us to to generate stress hormones like cortisol, which is not necessarily a good thing. So we want to give ourselves grace, be willing to give ourselves grace for the things that we aren't doing that we know we need to do. I used to talk about equilibrium and balance in our lives, but we're not balanced. Balance is difficult to achieve. What I focus now on is harmony. Is what I'm doing right now in harmony with the way I want to live my life, with the understanding that sometimes I'm going to be a little bit more focused on one area of my life, and it may be to the detriment of some other area of my life, but I'll get to that when I'm able to stop doing the other thing, because I think sometimes that idea that we can't that we're out of balance can also cause some stress. So we want to avoid stress and be as calm and peaceful as we possibly can be. Okay, so this has all been a deep dive into one aspect of my leadership chromosome coaching program that I introduced a few nights ago. It is still available at a reduced price. All that information is in Guide 1 in the Facebook group if there's people interested. All of that information will be available through Monday night. So Monday night till about 11:59, it'll all be available. If you have friends that you invited that didn't get an opportunity to come, you can tell them to join the group, and then direct them to the guide with all of the videos from each night. Are in that guide, as well as the workbook, as well as information about how to talk to me or go directly and sign up for a leadership chromosome. So all of that is there. And so take advantage of it. I'll be doing this again sometime in June. And during those times when I do the masterclass, I always offer some discounted prices. And so if you want to recommend this to somebody that should have been here but didn't make it, please share that information. Just send them to the Facebook group, and that's a good way to be in the know. Also, if they want to shoot me an email, you guys have my information. Just do that, and I can put them in my newsletter. I can make them a part of the newsletter that I've been trying to send out. I think the last one I sent out was this month. So every few weeks or so. I haven't set a time yet. I'm working toward every couple of weeks, or at least once a month. So there should be something coming out in the next week or two. Any questions for me as we hit the 7:45 hour? I don't think I have anybody. So normally I also do my Set It Up Sunday. I think this is very apropos to Set It Up Sunday, making sure that you're aware of the things that are stopping you. So we're kind of doing a combo thing. If there are no questions, I like to end these sessions with a little conscious combo. So my conscious combo is my conscious breathing. So our breath, our breath is one of the bodily functions one of the only bodily functions that we can really control. And but it also impacts other systems, other of our systems, like for instance our heart rate. So if you are comfortable doing so, I invite you to place your feet flat on the floor. Sit up to give your lungs and your diaphragm and your abdomen area room to expand and contract. Please don't arch your back as you do that. Close your eyes if you feel comfortable doing so, and then just start to breathe in through your nose and exhale through your mouth, just at your own pace. Just, inhale and exhale. If you could mute your mic. And as you inhale and exhale, try to slow your breath down. So try to make that inhale slower, maybe bigger, and then exhale through your mouth. I sometimes purse my lips. That seems to help the exhale slow down, but you don't have to do that if you don't want. Okay, and relax. And now take a big inhale of action. So fill your body up with action. Let it permeate your being. And then exhale inertia. So press out any inertia that you might be feeling. You want to take this information and do something with it. So press that out of your body and relax. And for your second breath, I want you to take a big inhale of assurance. So whatever self-assurance, whatever you need to feel assurance about, fill up with that. Let that permeate your being. And then press out any doubt. So again, if it's self-doubt or doubt about your, any feelings of disbelief or unbelief, press all of that out of your being and relax. And then for this final breath, I want you to take a big gulp of achievement. So fill yourself up with achievement. Let your belly expand if necessary so you can be full of achievement. And then press out any fear that you're feeling. So just press all of it out. Exhale it. Fill your diaphragm. Pull your abs in. Feel your abs engage. Press all the fear out. Press your navel to your spine. You want to get rid of all of that fear and relax. All right. And if you are feeling any anxiety around anything that I've talked about, just breathe. Take some deep cleansing breaths and focus on what you want and let go of the things that you don't want. Any questions before I let you go? I'm a few minutes past my advertised time. No? Okay, well, I so appreciate you being with me. Those of you that have been here every night, I can't express my gratitude enough. I so appreciate you. I don't take it for granted that you've hung out with me these nights. And, thank you for being here. And I'm going to let you go. So have a great rest of your Sunday evening. And I'll see you inside Leadership Unlocked private group. Have a good night. Thank you. Bye.